everybody. Welcome to the Strive Summit podcast. And with me today, I have Nicolas. Nicolas, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, Alex. My name is Nicolas Arellano. I am an architect and I am from Chile, but I have been in Ottawa, Canada for the last 10 years. And I have been for the last 7 years at Carleton University in Ottawa doing my PhD and also working at the Carleton Immersive Media Studio. Basically, my PhD, which is in architecture, focuses on coding and the use of open source tools, digital tools for architects. So that's my research, and also been teaching this pretty much this whole time. So I taught BIM fundamentals at Algonquin College for 4 years, like pretty much a lot of proprietary BIM or like Autodesk tools, things like that, and a little bit of Dynamo, and then I started looking into open source tools, specifically JavaScript, so using the browser as a BIM software. And for the last 2 years, I have been teaching a class about that I made for architect students at Carleton University, which it's been very interesting.
That is a impressive resume, and I know we talked earlier. So, what number? How many PhDs is this? Does this make it 2 or 3?
Well, I don't know. It's one, but probably I'm not even halfway. It's gonna take me a couple of years to finish because I am also, as I say, I'm also working full time at this Carleton Immersive Media Studio, which is an amazing lab that focuses on basically using different kinds of digital media for architecture and heritage representation, storytelling, fabrication. And there I have been leading a project that is great. Like I really want to later talk about it. It's we are working on a digital twin for Canada, but the idea is to make it with only open source technology, and at the end of the year provide the full, not only the full code, but also the full software for free, so anybody can like use this tool, which is try to make the interaction between BIM and GIS very smooth, so anybody can use it, like simple user interface, not a lot of previous knowledge about cartography or building information modeling, which is basically where we're trying to achieve here.
Wow. Okay. Oh, that's a lot to unpack. Hold on. Give me a second. Okay. So you're teaching, you're getting your PhD, you're also at this Carrington Center, right?
The Carleton University, yeah.
Carleton University. Okay.
Yeah.
I want to hear more about that technology going on there. What's exciting you, especially about open space. So open space is, from my understanding, it's a very European concept with BIM. Everyone out there is IFC, open space. I don't know that much about Canada and where they sit with it, and I'm very interested to hear about this project. So why don't you kind of give a little overview of what open source, open space kind of means, and then some of the tech and stuff you're using with it.
Yeah. BIM. This is a kind of like a paradox that I always find very weird and interesting, is that when you go back to the beginnings of BIM, everything was like open, collaborative, like vendor free, and like super easy to like interoperability and all of that. And then when the software started to be developed by big software companies, they made an amazing job. Like their softwares are great, beautiful, everything, but of course they want to sell software, so basically they created a system that, I don't want to sound punk, but they created a system to monopolize the industry pretty much. So now they pretty much capture the industry. Like everybody that talks about BIM talks about proprietary BIM, and that could be okay, but the problem is that if you want to use the software, the license is 35K per license per year. Sorry, not 35K, 3.5K, so
Mm-hmm.
3,500.
Yep.
Uh, and that's a lot for like independent architects, for small firms, for students. So yeah, for students, no, because they give you the software for free. So when you graduate, you don't know anything else. So basically, you are kind of like dependent to them.
And you're
This is
talking
a
about Autodesk, right?
Yeah, I don't want to. Yeah, Autodesk is the big one here in North America, but also there is like ArchiCAD, and there are like three
Mm-hmm.
big vendors. And as I was saying, like they have been doing this for years. They have like really beautiful software, beautiful interfaces, powerful. But the problem is that you need to be employed by a big firm in order to be able to use them. So in my opinion, that's not okay. Like that's not great. You need to be critical to that. So that's basically what I'm trying to teach my students: like, be critical. Don't think that BIM means proprietary BIM. And what I was saying before is that the paradox here is that people call BIM this, but then there is this organization, international organization, that is called Building Smart International, that created the concept of OpenBIM, which is pretty much describing what BIM should be. Like interoperability, vendor free, like collaboration, all of that. So why do we have to call something open when by definition it should be open? So we should call the other one close, and then we should call BIM the one. So open BIM. And sorry, and going back to your question, so I don't branch away too much.
It's all right.
You ask about IFC. So IFC is an schema. So it's a way of working, organization of data, that Building Smart International created in order to provide an open way of basically describing BIM. So uh, you and me we can collaborate only if we speak the same language, or we define. For example, I define this thing here as a wall, but if
Mm-hmm.
your software describes that as uh, I don't know, as a roof, we're going to be in problem. I'm going to send you my model, and your software is not going to understand what I'm talking about. So there is this international schema that defines building information models in an open way, and that one is called industry foundation classes. It was at the beginning, it was developed by Autodesk and a group of other companies, but of course the open concept of it was then abandoned by this group, and then Building Smart International championed this. And it's not only a schema, but also a file format. So when you work, for example, with Revit, you need a file format called RVT, which is a proprietary format, which means that your model lives in that format, and you require to have like the latest version of that software, or the specific version of the software, to run your model. So in order for you to basically own your data, own your models, you are dependent to the software. But with the open formats, you can open your model in any software that basically is able to integrate IFC. So that's what we are trying to promote a lot. And in the last couple of years, like in the last 3-4 years, there have been a couple of amazing projects that I want to mention that are using this concept of native IFC. Basically, you are developing BIM from the beginning using IFC as your BIM, as your
Your foundation. Yeah.
foundation. So the one that is really like the most popular, and in my opinion, the one that opened the door for all of the others, is called Bonsai BIM, and it previously was called BlenderBIM, which is based
Okay.
on Blender.
Yep.
And also one that I really like is it was called IFC JS, and now it's called that open engine, which is basically using JavaScript, so the internet browser, or any internet browser, as a software for BIM applications, and it's totally amazing. So I encourage everybody that is listening this to check out Blender BIM and that open engine, or that open company. Sure,
It
amazing
is.
projects.
It's very clear that you're very passionate about open BIM and open source, and I think it's incredible. I can hear it when you talk.
Yeah, yeah.
So what? It's awesome. So open BIM concept. Um, Now this is a great concept because, like, open source. We talk Blender for a minute. If you guys out there are not familiar, Blender is an open source kind of like VFX software, right? Think
Yeah.
of like Unreal Engine, Unity, Blender, right? But Blender is open source; it's free, and the community builds codes and source codes and plugins and stuff, and that all becomes like this amazing tool. Blender BIM. Do you have any idea how that started or how that got into it?
Yeah, absolutely. So Blender has been around for maybe more than a decade, like probably
Yeah.
13 years, and it's been very popular, and it has like a big community. And the good thing about these open projects is that at the beginning, it's really hard for them to compete with the established like proprietary solutions. But
Mm-hmm.
when the community starts to like build on it and start to make it grow, it becomes like a serious software. And for years and years, Blender has been like a totally acceptable competitor software for the proprietary one. So you have your software, for example, Maya, that it's very expensive and is really
Mm-hmm.
great, but then you can do like pretty much the same things or like very strong things with Blender. Like you can do animations, films, games, etc. But so architects have been using Blender for many years, but just as a 3D engine, like to produce renders, to model geometry, to do parametric design, all of that. But the problem is that nobody had created like a strong link with BIM, which and BIM is basically, I'm not going to talk about that, but basically adding like a good link of the metadata with the geometry. It's like the real connection of the attributes, the parameters to that BIM object. So maybe 4 or 5 years ago, Dion Moult, an architect from Australia, developed the first plugin for Blender that, or not the first maybe, but one that really catch up about using Blender
Mm-hmm.
using Blender as a BIM engine, and that was
Yeah.
based
Yeah.
on native IFC. So that was, as I was saying, kind of like the foundation for something that appeared a couple of months later that is called OSArch, so Open Source Architecture, that it's like a big community around AECO, so architects, engineer, construction, operation owners, but passionate about open source community. So that was kind of like the foundation. Then I started talking about other projects like IFC OpenShell, IFC.js, and you can choose, you can use them, all of them. But I I am putting more attention on the one IFC.js because it's the one that allows you to use the browser. So you don't even need to download a software. You can just use internet. So it's really
That.
really awesome.
Yeah. That's incredible. Okay, so if you want to get into BIM, download Blender, get yourself OpenBIM, Blender BIM,
Yeah.
OSR Arc, IFCJS, all open source, free. Use
Yes.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And obviously, Nicholas is somewhere on LinkedIn, so go find him and ask him all the questions you want.
Absolutely. I'll put my credentials there, and I'll be happy to share more about this because I'm all about
Awesome,
that.
awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's change gears a little bit. Okay,
Yeah.
so you said you're from Chile, right?
Yeah.
Let's get into your journey. Okay, so you have an incredible resume right now. You went from Chile to Canada. You're doing all this stuff. You're getting your PhD. You're teaching. You're doing all this stuff. Okay, when did it start? When was it you were going to get into architecture? When was it you were going to go to school? When was the aha moment for BIM, IFC, open
Yeah.
source? And I'll start way at the beginning. Go as far back as you want.
I was passionate about timber construction, so not not the same at all. And
Okay.
well, a little back is that I lived in Canada when I was just after high school. I moved here with my family for like 2 years. I met my girlfriend there, that now is my wife, and we went to Chile. So we studied, both of us. She's a Chilean too. So we dated in Chile. We got married, and when we got married, we said, hey, let's try to go back to Ottawa where we met, and try to do something there, maybe study something. So I was, yeah, as I was saying, like I was passionate about timber construction, and Canada, one of the world class reference of timber. So I'm always was like, okay, I had to do my master in timber. I always like the technological part of architecture. So,
But
but
what got you interested in timber construction? What was it, like a
I
building you saw or?
I had a professor at university that was very passionate about construction. I really liked his class, and then I was his TA for many years. And then, like in the last couple of years of architecture, I joined the Timber Innovation Center at Universidad Católica of Chile, and and this is when I pivot because somebody offered my boss a BIM certification that it was all paid by the center, and he was he was busy, so he said, "Hey, somebody wants to do this BIM thing.
Mm-hmm.
I've never heard about BIM." And I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, why not? So I took it, and I that opened my eyes. I'm like, oh, this is amazing. I learned about it. I learned about Revit and like all of this stuff. And then we decided to move to Canada. And when I moved here, I applied to a firm, and they were looking for a BIM person. So pretty much it was meant to be. And I don't want to go too too long about this, but I started working as an intern architect in this firm called Nor, and of course to the new intern, like you have of course your expectations about what you're going to do, all of the creative things that you're going to design, and then when you
Mm-hmm.
learn about BIM, all of the amazing things that you're going to do with BIM, and then you start as the new guy or as the new employee on this firm, on this big firm, and they say, okay, go to rename all of these sheets, go to like rename all of these doors and do all of these
By
things
the.
that are insanely boring and repetitive. So
Yep.
I'm like, no, 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 like this is a waste of my of my of my time. I'm gonna go nuts. And that's when my friend Kirk, I think you had him here on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
He told me, hey, you know about Dynamo? Is this thing where you program like a script, some like behaviors, so basically the computer can do those repetitive tasks for you. So I started learning Dynamo, and I got like I like learning, so I got pretty intense, and then I started to like automate all of these processes and tasks, and I at the end of like I worked 2 years there, and at the end of my time, I was pretty much all of my tasks I had them like automatic, like I had like a script for it, and then I was like, no, I have to do something like more serious about this, so I went to Carleton, and that's where I got to know my current supervisor, Professor Fai, and the lab that he runs, which is the Carleton Immersive Media Studio. And then I started. I joined the PhD there, and then I said, like, like, I don't know, timber is good, but I want to go more into the digital, because everything is we
Mm-hmm.
deal so much with the digital right now. Like all of our profession, it's basically bridged by these
What
interfaces.
what
Yes.
year was that when you were like timber to
uh,
digital?
2018.
2018. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's when I said, all of our practice is so intensely like basically uh, interface, or like embedded in
Yeah.
this digital realm, that if we don't really understand what it is about, or if we don't know how to use it, there are so many barriers, so many limitations, so many obstacles, that we need to find ways to like understand this word. So that's when like started to take some programming courses like Python and Java and JavaScript, etc. And I really liked it. Like, people think that it's very engineering, but
Mm-hmm.
actually programming is super creative. Like, I was doing more things way more creative than when I was in the design side of the profession. So then I started to learning how to program, etc. And and I was pretty much in the right place and the right moment, because when we started to go from the and I started to learn like map renderers, like like GIS, cartography, all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when we wanted to integrate that with BIM is when I discovered Bonsai BIM or BlenderBIM and IFCJS. So it was like the community was just started to get like in a pretty intense exponential momentum. And so I was like lucky to be pretty early adopters of these technologies. I am pretty close with the developers of these technologies, and yeah, now we have been doing this project for maybe 3 years. We have like a big team, and we are having a blast. It's amazing. So yeah,
That's awesome. Now I'm gonna dissect your journey a little bit. Okay,
yeah.
what got you interested in your university and the courses in architecture? What made you decide to go that route?
So architecture, like back then,
Yeah, back in you're in Chile.
uh, I kind of knew that I wanted to be architect when I was like very young, like maybe I don't know, 10 years old. Like I always liked to play with Legos, and I have been like I love drawing, so
Mm-hmm.
I have been like very artistic like my whole life. So basically, in Chile was like, you like art, you like create things. It's like architects is kind of like a no-brainer. So it was like natural for me to go there, and I loved it. Like I really like uh, studying architecture. Of course, as I was saying before, like the crash to reality when you start those first years and you are not doing
Yeah.
what you expected, it's like tough. Like I cannot complain. The office that time, I really value those years. It was great. Everybody there, like I have like good memories, but it's not what you dream of being an architect. So I'm like, okay, I'm like, no, I'm gonna look something different. And you never know, but right now I don't think I'm going to be going back to design, like to building design.
Right.
Probably that's not my my goal anymore. Yeah.
So you mentioned you're getting your PhD now in Canada. Can you tell me some differences between universities and how they're kind of set up between Chile and Canada?
Um,
Like, okay, for instance, in I believe it's South America, university starts at like or high school level, right? And they follow down that path, that critical path in career.
yeah.
And in the U.S. here, high school is up to 12th grade, and then you decide what you want to do, right? I also learned that in some Middle Eastern countries, when they teach you, they call it civil engineering. It's all engineering. They just have one called civil. Then you learned all this. So it's interesting to hear the education process of, like, I think about if I'm going to hire an architect from Chile, right? And I don't know how they learn architecture. I'm hiring him thinking he's going to have the same U.S. standard that I think, right? And so something I've been talking about a lot lately is outsourcing. And outsourcing is a problem. One, I think, is because the education is different from place to place to place. Outsourcing is great. I think people should do it if it's within their means, but
Mhm,
not do it by crises, right? They
mhm,
shouldn't be like, oh, just outsource it and get it done. I
mhm.
think they need to like develop teams and stuff overseas to train them and stuff. But if I hire an architect from Chile, what am I getting? So that's why I'm interested to hear, is the structure different in a way that you think that it's an elongated process or it's shortened or you learn more about this fact than the other? What can you tell me?
I don't think it's that different, to be
Okay,
honest.
good.
The like architecture is a is a or is a career or is a discipline that gives you like at least the this is the impression that I have, that gives you like pretty general basis to like it, and it's a very versatile also profession. So basically you can end up doing software development, you can end up doing like
Mm,
landscaping or urbanism or detail or heritage. It's like pretty much it's not like a super technical or super like a specific field of knowledge. So that's also something that I would a big criticism that I have with some architecture schools, when they think that they are like basically uh, training hubs for architecture firms, where they want to like teach you all of the software so you are like the best employable person when you exit the school. Like that, for me, that's not what it should be. I really like what I had as an experience where it's like a very critical, very like you are basically challenging the status quo all the time, and you are like thinking like and rethinking about things instead of like waiting for all of the answers. So I think that's is very valuable about architecture. It's very valuable about university in general, and that's the reason why I try to teach that. Is basically saying like I'm not going to teach you any specific tool, but like
Mm-hmm.
the concepts and the like like the mindset to be able to use any tools to basic but with a specific vision. So I don't know if that at all answers
Oh,
your
that was
question.
perfect. That was
Yeah.
perfect. I mean, I never went to architecture here in the States, but I've heard people tell me it's very um, geared towards architecture. And then there's different types of architecture you can get
Yeah,
into. And
of
like,
course.
I talk about a lot how in the States people go engineering or architecture. That's the
Yeah.
only two paths you take really for
Mhm,
design or anything. And then you fall into this path of BIM
mhm,
because before it was drafting, and drafting was a 2 year degree, and there was nothing beyond drafting.
mhm, mhm,
Drafting turned into BIM, and BIM is this massive industry culture dynamic that
mhm,
opened eyes to LiDAR, opened eyes to VR, opened eyes to open source, right? There's all these different things that happen because BIM is not 2 years anymore. It's not drafting, it's a full career.
mhm, mhm.
And I think not many people have picked up on that yet. There's one school here in the US that has a bachelor and associates for VDC,
Mhm.
but that's the only school.
Yeah.
That's a 4 year degree for specifically BIM.
Mhm,
But there's no one else doing it. There's everyone's
mhm,
doing design technologies, 2 year associates, and you kind of touch on Maya and Blender and
mhm,
Revit and
mhm, mhm,
AutoCAD. But there's nothing that teaches you VDC or BIM.
mhm, mhm.
So I
No,
like to
exactly.
hear how interesting that is and how you fall into that. So you went into
Yeah.
architecture and you fell into this BIM path, right?
Mhm, yeah. And
Everyone everyone falls into it.
yeah. And as you were saying, like I value a lot the more technical, more like technology based approaches. So a lot of people, for example, go to I mentioned that I taught in Algonquin College, and they are like
Mm-hmm.
very focused on teaching like the best technologies and the best processes, and the students that exit college, like architectural technology, things like that, they are so good for the job. Like they are prepared, they go, they do the job well and everything. But it's very different to what you get from architecture, like for like architecture in a university. The other one is more like that's the reason why there is a space for PhD, which is basically doctorate in philosophy. It's like basically you are thinking about the knowledge and the theory behind this practice, which is both of them are very valuable. We cannot live with we cannot live only with people thinking about it, and we cannot live with only with people that knows the techniques. Otherwise we will be doomed with either. I think
Right.
so.
We need innovators.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
That's awesome. Okay. So you travel back to Canada, you and your wife, right?
Yeah.
And so you get the job working for where was the first place?
Nor,
Nor,
Norr.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's where you had your architecture experience and you said, no, not for me. They're having you like wipe tables and change names of files and stuff. That's very basic, like you're the new guy. Okay. So then you get sick of that and you go to the where are you going to?
Carleton University, Carleton
Carleton
Immersive Media
University.
Studio. Yeah.
Okay. How did you find out about Carleton? How did you get into that?
Yeah, as I was telling you, I really like teaching and learning, so I always wanted to do a master's, anything related to technology, because I like that. So
Mm-hmm.
when I was like basically like pretty close to take that decision, a colleague from NOR told me, hey, I work on this lab called SIMS, Cartoon Immersive Media Studio, and they are going to give a lecture about what they're doing with their robots and with their like digital tours and things like that. So I'm like, okay, cool. So I went and I was like mind blown. So after the basically after the presentation that was given by Professor Stephen Fay, I chased him. Basically, I like I I chased him to like in the parking lot, and I'm like, hey, sorry, sorry, I'm not a stalker. I just want to tell you that I'm like very impressed about what you do, and I'm looking for for some continue my education, and also if you have something in your lab that I can. So he's like, hey, yeah, come interview, blah blah. So I started there the masters with them. He was my supervisor, and then from there I jumped into the PhD, and that's been 7 years of me working with them, and it's been like so good. Like that lab is it's amazing. Like all of the things that at the beginning we were doing, like the rehabilitation of the Canadian Parliament. So we have like
Hmm.
this massive Parliament building and the whole Parliament precincts, and we have scanned everything and model everything from point cloud to BIM to like a super like extreme precision. So that was HBIM, so Heritage BIM. I did that for a couple of years, and then is when we started with the project of the Carleton University Digital Campus. So we were like from one building to modeling 50 buildings, all of the
Wow.
exteriors, the infrastructure, the landscaping, the underground tunnels. Because we are in Canada, we need underground tunnels. Everything, everything. So with this massive building, that's when the proprietary solution that we were using started to limit us, because try to open 50 buildings, 50 BIM models on Revit.
No, can't do it.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
quick question. You mentioned tunnels, and you have to have tunnels in Canada. Can you tell me why?
We have 5 kilometers of underground tunnels. So basically, you can be living in the residence, walk in your pajamas to the store, then walk to your class, and never have to wear a jacket.
Well, okay, this is brand new. I had no idea
Yeah,
Canada had
it's
tunnels. Tell
crazy.
me, tell
Yeah,
me why you need tunnels.
no, because Canada in the winter can be minus 30, or it can be with like a meter of snow for like 3 months. So if you don't have tunnels, basically it's pretty hostile. So
So, so does every building have a tunnel?
we have a tunnel system that connects and Carleton is a pretty like spread campus. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's like from side to side, maybe it's 2.5 kilometers. And yeah, everything is connected by this system of tunnels. Is insane. So yeah.
Okay. So, is it just the university that has it, or do all buildings have them?
In no the university has Ottawa
Okay.
doesn't
Okay.
Ottawa has some tunnel system in downtown, but Toronto has like massive tunnels underground downtown Toronto. But yeah, no, the university is pretty well connected with this system. And but just because we're talking about this Ottawa and the cold weather, I'm gonna tell you something that is like more crazy
Let
about
me
this
hear it.
about this city. So we have not a river, a canal. So basically, like a like a
Right.
man-made river
Mm-hmm.
that crosses the whole city, and it's from side to side is like 7 kilometers long, 8 kilometers, I believe, and it basically connects downtown with Carleton University from side to side. So it's 8 kilometers of this canal, and in the winter, because it gets so cold, it freezes. So it becomes like the longest skate rink basically in the world. So you can, and I did it actually. You can, if you live downtown, you can commute to your work or to your school by ice skate, 8 kilometers of ice skate. Which is, I was telling my friends, yeah, I skate to work, and they're like, no, you're crazy, like that's not possible. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I
very
skate to
cool.
work, no big deal. Let's strap it
Yeah,
on. Go for it.
yeah,
Yeah, well, you're truly Canadian now, that's for sure.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So yeah, no,
Oh, that's awesome.
it's an amazing country. Yeah,
Okay, so tell me about. You wanted to talk more about this project, right? Why
yeah,
don't you tell me more about this project real quick?
yeah. No, I would love to. So basically, I was mentioning the campus. So we were getting to a size of asset information model that was basically breaking all of our tools. So we were
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, we need to like we need to find something else. So that's when we started looking into GIS. So GIS, basically geospatial information systems, maps, like larger scale, and we started finding ways of linking through open source. So At the beginning was Blender GIS with BlenderBIM, and doing things that we could not do with InfraWorks and Revit, for example. And then
Hmm.
when we discover Mapbox, Cesium, MapLibre, which are like the map renderers on the internet browser, we discovered that we were able to mix or sorry, overlap these two scales with the tools that I was mentioning. So IFCJS for the BIM, or 3JS for the 3D geometries, and MapLibre for the maps. So when we discovered this, basically the scale was not a limit for us. We could scale. So that's when we started working on a project that was called Imagine Canada's Digital Twin, which was like, okay, United Kingdom and Singapore and Australia and all of these countries are working on like imagining their national digital twin. Why don't we try to do one here, which is insane because Canada is so wide, it's the second largest country in the world. So
Hmm.
why don't we try here? And we start to think about making the first national digital twin that is fully open source and relies fully on open source technologies. And we started to do that. At the beginning, it was really hard because we didn't know the tool, so it took us a long time to get started. But when we got something working, it got a lot of attention. So a lot of people started to collaborate with us. We got a couple of contracts with people that just wanted to expand their site to more GIS, and that's what we're doing right now. So basically, we are creating like a BIM or like an asset viewer that it's pretty easy to use, but it's robust and it's strong and it's performant, but combining that with a map application that does the same and that can integrate and can you can jump from this scale to this scale. And just by learning that, and because of the amazing like the something that is amazing about the open source project is that you don't have to create everything from scratch, because there are so many open source projects that you start learning about one thing and you can use this library or you can use this package. You can start combining and creating new things based on what exists. So we discovered that, for example, there are in Canada and of course in the States, there are like many open data portals. So every municipality, for example, every province, and even the federal government have like these galleries of data where you can go, and a lot of data, like thousands and thousands of like
Hmm.
data sets of different types of data, are uh, open, like free to use. The problem is that they are so hard to use that nobody can actually integrate them into their workflows. So we started saying, okay, why don't we try to take all of these different ones, Open Toronto, Open Ottawa, Open Ontario, Open BC, Natural Resources Canada, Stats Canada, and combine all of these into one viewer. So people without any programming knowledge can start like checking these resources and take a look at all of these amazing data sets. And so it's basically a combination between these three things: open data, GIS, and BIM into one
Hmm.
viewer that we want to make like super easy, like super uh,
So
intuitive.
super high end Google Earth.
It's like a Google Earth, but we're not data miners. We're not trying to extract your data. We're just trying to make
Yeah.
a user experience where you can like take advantage of this data. And of course, we need to make this sustainable. So we are not doing everything for free because we, are made of money. But
Right. Yeah.
we have this business model where we have like the base, which is what we want to have for free, that is maintained by all of these projects that are like bespoke application for, I don't know, for the National Research Council, a bespoke application for the Department of Defense, another one
Hmm.
for, and I'm talking about real projects, for Carleton University, another one for this development group in Toronto. So we basically are offering them the same technology that we're offering for free, but like a bespoke or like a custom made application for you. You are also paying us for the know-how, for maintaining, for the service, for all of that. So it's pretty sustainable so far. We have a big team. we have secure resources for the next 2 years, 3 years,
Wow.
and yeah, I don't know. I think it just keeps growing. It's pretty cool.
That's awesome. That's incredible. Okay, so Nicholas, is anyone if anyone's interested in getting into OpenBIM or seeing what this project's about, where
Yeah,
would you send them first? And what are some resources you might
yeah.
let
If
them
you
go
are
check out?
yeah, if you are from the ACO industry, you should definitely go to osarc.org, I believe, which is the main kind of like community around open source tools. You're gonna find there a wiki where you're gonna see a lot of different tools. In my opinion, one of my favorites is Bonsai Beam, which I already mentioned. So go and check
Mm-hmm.
that one. Also, I also encourage you to take a look at that Open Company, which is like they are recently become a company and they are providing a lot of education. Like they sell these master classes and these resources to learn from nothing, from not knowing programming to become like pretty good at developing software. So that one is also one that I would encourage you to check. 3JS is a beautiful community for 3D graphics in the browser or in the JavaScript. What else? Yeah, I think that will keep you busy for.
Learning the software, or like I'm sure open source BlenderBIM has a lot. I know the Blender community is
Mm,
massive.
yeah, yeah.
Any specific places, or like just YouTube?
YouTube has good resources. As something amazing about the open source packages is that the community is pretty intense and a lot of forums, very passionate people that will love to get in touch with you and help. Like that's basically the spirit of the open source community. And there are always like paid courses that I recommend a lot. For example, as I was mentioning, like that open company that
Mm-hmm.
has the master of BIM software developers. There is also this guy called Petru that has a podcast that is called BIM Voice, which I recommend a lot. And he has a lot of courses also about OpenBIM. What else? Yeah, I think
I'm sure if they Google it, they'll find plenty.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Awesome. And Nicholas, I appreciate you coming out here and being on a podcast with me and sharing your passion for Open BIM. I'm going to have you hang around for a little bit. All to our listeners out there, if you like what you listen to, please like, subscribe, and follow the Strive Summit podcast on all socials, YouTube and LinkedIn mainly. And Nicholas, thanks again for coming on.
No, thanks, Alex. It's been a pleasure to to be in your podcast, and I hope you keep like having all of these great conversations. Like I really enjoyed them. So thank you so
Awesome.
much for doing this.
Great. Thank you.
Bye. Have a good night.